Welcome, everybody. This is the Arizona Commerce Authority ABDG subrecipient reporting training. And with me today are my teammates, my program advisors. My name is Vanessa Figueroa, and I am the grant manager here. And I will let my team introduce themselves. Team?
Thanks, Vanessa. Trey Kublock with KPMG. We're program advisors to ACA on the ABDG program.
Devin Jensen here with KPMG as well, and supporting as a program advisor.
And then Keaton Gore here, also with KPMG.
Great. So thanks, guys. So our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to be setting the stage to the reporting, why we're doing this reporting, what our responsibilities are as subrecipients for reporting. B would be subrecipient reporting requirements. We're looking at 3 different types of reporting. The P&E, which is the progress and expense report. We're looking at the annual performance report and the closeout report. And then the last part is ABD program administration and support. So that's looking basically at the 2 CFRs and any regulations that are guiding our reporting.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Trey? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks. So as a recipient of CPF funding, Treasury requires that the Governor's Office for Arizona report on a variety of different items related to the progress of the ABDG program. In order for the Arizona Commerce Authority, ACA, to report that information, we need to collect information from you as the subrecipients, and that'll be done, as Vanessa mentioned, through these reporting forms. It's extremely important that subrecipients submit accurate information in the reports that are required. It's also extremely important that the reports are delivered on time. Otherwise, there may be a delay to reporting this information to Treasury. So we appreciate everyone's support to make sure that the reports that you're submitting are accurate as well as on time. Keep in mind that you'll be responsible as a subrecipient for ensuring that you have the documentation to substantiate the information that's being required in the reporting forms. Backup detail isn't required to be submitted as part of the quarterly or the annual reporting unless it's explicitly requested in the forms. However, keep in mind that ACA will be reviewing backup detail separately as it monitors the progress of each of the individual projects. So subrecipients need to ensure that you can substantiate the information that's being included in the reports. And subrecipients should also ensure that the reporting documents, in progress coincide with the payment reimbursement amounts that you're requesting on a monthly basis. And we'll dive deeper into these requirements as we walk through the reporting forms. We'll introduce the reporting requirements. We'll provide some additional information around the timing of when ACA requires subrecipients to submit these reports. And then we'll share some helpful suggestions for complying with all the requirements as part of this reporting process. And Devin and Keaton are going to walk through more detail on the reporting requirements themselves.
Thank you, Trey. So here we have the overview of reporting requirements. There are 3 separate requirements in the terms of reporting for the CPF and ABDG program. 2 ongoing reporting requirements, which are project expenditure report, or known as the P&E report, and then the annual performance reports. Lastly, we have the final requirement, which is the project closeout report. Before diving into the information provided in these reports, we wanted to note one thing. The project and expenditure report and annual performance report is referred to as the activity report in eCivis. When submitting the P&E report and annual report, please be sure you're submitting this to the activity report section in eCivis. This is different from the monthly payment reimbursement request forms, which should be submitted through as financial reports in eCivis. The project and expenditure report is a quarterly report that requires information on projects, funded, obligations, expenditures, project status, outputs, performance indicators, and other information. The performance report is a separate annual report that requires a more in-depth detail around project status, communities served, promoting equitable outcomes and needs, and a variety of other status-related information. The closeout report is a final report at project completion that is geared toward project completion related information, challenges, performance, and other closeout related items. It is very important that each of you as a subrecipient become familiar with these forms and the reporting requirements included within them. If you have questions as you go through them, please submit a question with the State Broadband Office ABDG support team, and we can follow up with a written response as needed. It's also very important that for the information that is provided in these reports, that you as a subrecipient can substantiate the information. ACA will monitor and review these reports, and that includes potential ad hoc requests for backup data to substantiate the information and data that you include. Next slide, please. Now we'll take a look at the submission timing. It is critical that as a subrecipient, you provide the required information on time to the State Broadband Office. The State Broadband Office is required to review the information that's being provided in the reports and has a very quick turnaround to provide the completed forms to the Governor's Office. The Governor's Office then has to provide these reports to the Treasury by a certain date. Any untimely submissions can have major implications on oversight of grant funds. The submission timing for the project and expenditure report is due quarterly, no later than the 20th of the month following the quarter end. For Q1 in any year, it's due April 20th. For Q2, it will be due July 20th. For Q3, it will be due October 20th. And for Q4, it is due January 20th. ACA's expectation is that subrecipients should be tracking project progress and keeping records that include the information requested. If subrecipients are able to submit the quarterly report prior to the 20th, please feel free to do so. We just ask that each subrecipient submit no later than the 20th of the following month. Note that the P&E report is submitted quarterly and is different from all payment reimbursement reports, which are submitted monthly. Moving to the annual performance report, this report is due once a year on July 20th of the covered period. The next submittal for the annual performance report is due on July 20th, 2024, and that will cover the periods from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. The annual performance reporting requirement does not replace the Q2 quarterly reporting requirement, even though they must be submitted at the same time. These are two separate reporting requirements that include different information. So July 20th, the Q2 P&E report and annual performance report are both due. The payment reimbursement form is also separately due. Lastly, at the end of the project, subrecipients will be required to submit the closeout report. Friendly reminder is that all of these forms and reports will have to be submitted through eCivis in similar fashion to how each subrecipient has submitted the payment reimbursement request information. Next slide, please. Thank you. So looking further into the quarterly P&E report, for the quarterly project and expenditure report, we wanted to touch again on the naming convention in eCivis versus the actual quarterly P&E report. The quarterly project and expenditure report is referred to as the activity report in eCivis. When submitting the quarterly P&E report, please be sure you're submitting this into the activity report section in eCivis. Looking into the quarterly P&E report, this is an Excel template that is used to monitor quarterly project status, and the template can be found through eCivis. This report is submitted 4 times a year. Each topic on the left of the screen is a section that you'll see in the form, and each section has few required responses. Some of the questions will be static, so they won't change quarter over quarter. Some will be less frequent, and then some will likely change every quarter. The quarterly P&E report example topics to be covered are project performance information, community information, speed and pricing, deployment progress, technology assessment, and location data. Everything covered in the quarterly P&E report are treasury-related items required, and they must be submitted. ACA created a separate quarterly P&E report form to help facilitate the information that's required and hopefully streamline the process for each of you when completing this report. On the screen, we've provided a snip of the quarterly P&E report, to which we'll go into more detail shortly. Looking at the annual performance report. The annual performance report is a separate requirement from the quarterly P&E report, but is referred to as the activity report in eCivis. When submitting the annual performance report, please be sure you're submitting this activity report section into eCivis. This report is required to be submitted by July 20th of each year during the project period and is more geared toward program goals, project outcomes achieved, and project progress. The form will require the subrecipients to complete all of these categories in the forms such as general information, project description, executive summary information, project status, uses of funds, promoting equitable outcomes, community serve, labor, speed and average price, community engagement, real property status, and civil rights compliance. This report is more comprehensive than your quarterly reports. We encourage subrecipients to continually focus on these reports, making sure you're tracking this information so that these can easily be completed on time. This report should be set up as tasks in eCivis that subrecipients will be required to meet and submit. Please review the forms ahead of time, and if there's any questions about how to answer certain items, please reach out to the State Broadband Office ABDG Program Support Team, and we'll provide additional guidance. Next slide, please. So lastly, we'll move into the closeout report. This is the final report that's required under the ABDG program. You as a subrecipient will need to submit the closeout report at the end of the project, no later than 60 calendar days following completion of the project, termination of the grant agreement, or expenditure of all award funds, whichever occurs later. The requirements included in the closeout report are different compared to the annual performance report. In this case, the form includes general information, project challenges, project completion, map updates, performance testing, and final reimbursement, where the subrecipients will be required to return any funds not obligated or expended for eligible uses within the eligible cost timeframe. Subrecipients shall include all required information described in the closeout report, and note, this report should be set up as tasks in the eCivis that subrecipients will be required to meet and submit. Now I'll pass it over to my colleague Keaton to walk us through the demonstration of all these reports covered.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. So as we've discussed, there are three primary reports for the ABDG program. There's the quarterly P&E report, the annual report, and the closeout report. So first, we're going to take a look at the quarterly P&E report. So the quarterly P&E report is a Microsoft Excel template where data is captured from subrecipients and ultimately reported to the U.S. Treasury. So as we can see on screen, this is the Excel form. So this is what you'll all be seeing. There are 5 main tabs. There's the cover sheet. There's the instructions page. So please read these instructions carefully as they go through everything that you need to do to make sure you submit a report that's in compliance. Then there's this ABDG quarterly P&E report tab. This is where the bulk of your time will be. So basically, the main thing to understand with the P&E report is you need to read the question in column D, and then the question text in column E, and then you need to enter in your response. And it's important to note that any deviation from requirements will necessitate a future resubmittal. And this isn't meant to sound scary, as the requirements are quite simple. Just please make sure to read the instructions carefully and read the question text carefully, as there are certain questions that have things like maximum character length, or they otherwise specify how the response should be entered. So essentially, this column F is where you'll be putting in your response. Some responses are going to be entering just regular text. Sometimes there will be a drop-down menu. In the case of a drop-down menu, please select something from the drop-down menu. Down here's another example. So again, please use the drop-down menu when it is available. So in column G, you're going to see the required column. And so basically what this is saying is whether a question is required to be responded to or not by you. And the key thing with this is some of the questions in the P&E report are conditional on responses from other questions. For example, or this question on capital asset ownership type, if you were to select other, like this question down here, this narrative description question becomes required. Whereas if it's something else like private, it's not required. So please just be sure to adhere that whenever a question says true in the required field, you're required to respond to it. And if it says false, you're not required. Another thing to note is that some questions have character limits. For your convenience, we've included a column that shows you how many characters you have remaining. So that's this column J. So please note that this character remaining won't update until you hit enter. So for example, for this question, if I type in hello, we started with 100 available characters, and now it says we have 95 characters remaining, so we would be in compliance. Or a one with a lower character count, for example, if we exceeded the character count, then we'll see a negative number, and you want to make sure that that is not negative, because that's indicating you've exceeded the character limit. Finally, you'll want to refer to column M, which essentially states whether a question is ready to submit or not. And you want to get all green trues here, and that will indicate that your worksheet is fully ready to submit. So as you can see, questions that aren't required, like this narrative description question in row 18, it says it's not required in column G. And so therefore it's ready to submit in this instance, because you do not need to respond to it. However, for ones that you do need to respond to, right, let's just say you typed in your example response and the first question, once you have that in, it'll show that it's ready to submit. And same thing with the next one, drop down box, et cetera, et cetera. Once you have gotten all questions to be this green true, up at the top, the worksheet in the cell G1, the worksheet will show true, and in cell F1, it will show that it's ready for submission. So please make sure that you have ready for submission prior to uploading this into eCivis. There are two more tabs in the P&E report. These are not meant for responses to be entered into. The outputs and location outputs are merely outputs tabs, which take the data that you enter in this tab and then put them into the format as specified by the Treasury. So next, we're going to review the annual performance report. And Devin already gave us a good overview of the annual performance report, so I won't go too in depth. I just want to kind of give you an idea of what the template looks like. So it is a Microsoft Word document, and you'll simply fill in your information. So the annual performance report captures key information related to the project, And it's important to note, this will likely be informed by the information you've gathered for your quarterly P&E report. So all the work you're doing for the P&E report won't be for waste. It'll help you on future reporting. But yeah, essentially you just fill this out and then upload it into eCivis. So finally, the third reporting document is the final closeout report, which looks similar to the annual performance report, but there are some differences. And again, with this one, you're going to fill it out and then upload it into eCivis at the completion of your project. And so I'm going to now pass this over to my colleague Trey to discuss additional resources and information.
Thanks, Keaton. Appreciate that overview. So in terms of resources and additional information, we've tried to provide some helpful resources and information in the back half of these slides. We'll make this presentation available to you for reference. Each of you as a subrecipient should have reviewed the reporting guide that has a lot of helpful information in terms of the submission requirements and the timing for reporting that we just discussed. The CPF guidance from Treasury will be helpful as well, so please review that guidance. We've included a variety of different links, and as I mentioned in the back of this report, that will be helpful as you fill out these reporting forms. So again, please review that guidance through the links that we provided in this presentation. And then lastly, please let us know if you have any questions as you review these requirements in the presentation, as well as the requirements and the information that's included in the reporting forms. If one subrecipient team has a question, chances are another team probably has a similar question. So we encourage everyone to submit those questions in writing, and then ACA will prepare a formal response, and we can provide that response to the full group, which I think will be helpful for all subrecipients. Please use the same email for reporting related questions as you've been using for any of the payment reimbursement related items. That email is broadbandgrants@azcommerce.com. I think that concludes our presentation. So Vanessa, back to you for any concluding remarks.
Thank you, team. I appreciate that you guys have gone through this. And again, if you have any questions regarding the reporting or any program related questions, the best thing to do is to email us at broadbandgrants@azcommerce.com, and we will respond to your inquiry. Thank you guys, and have a really great, wonderful day, guys. Everybody have a wonderful day.